Welcome to Tailored Talent. My name is Eric Walczykowski, CEO of Bespoke Partners. Today, I am joined with Nick Leister from CrossCountry. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you, Eric. I'm glad to be here today.
CrossCountry is a valuable alliance partner of Bespoke Partners, particularly as it relates to our financial officers practice. Today, we're going to talk about how the right CFO can create maximized value during an exit. This is a particularly important topic as we think about the year 2024 and the focus on exits for private equity firms. Nick, what are some of the diligence requirements you guys are seeing from buyers that should act as a guide for those who are looking to sell when the market picks up?
Yeah, no, I think what's most important that we're seeing in the market right now is really that diligence requirements are increasing. So buyers are diving deeper than ever, going through diligence processes and requiring more out of management teams. So what that really means is you have an increased focus on clean and robust data sets, particularly for current periods, as well as historical periods under review as part of financial modeling and QOV efforts. Some key areas that buyers are focused on, particularly in the software SaaS space, is around the ARR snowball. Buyers are looking for a full detailed build out, including kind of key components, including price increases, as well as churn, getting down to really net retention, gross retention calculations, so they can truly understand the trends in the business and get comfortable with where the business has come from and where it's going. The other piece I'll highlight is really around key metrics, going back on a apples to apples basis. So for a business that has been built through acquisitions over time, this is making sure that each of the prior acquisitions are put on an apples to apples basis from a definitions perspective and a calculations perspective. So this is an increased area where management teams are required to go back, recalculate, redefine these metrics, and have a basis where you're able to present it on that apples to apples view. This is for some of the key metrics I'll call out are really new logo, renewal bookings. This is an area we're seeing buyers hone in more, as well as looking around expenses. So headcount expenses and key vendor expenses. And then the last piece I'll highlight is really just having strong support for any EBITDA adjustment. So having a full build out schedule supporting any of the key add backs that are being included. While in previous cycles, most of these add backs would be assumed to be correct. And it's really having a full detailed build out to really show a buyer why these adjustments are needed.
No doubt. Well, and it's interesting you say that increased diligent requirements are in today's market. And I think it makes a ton of sense given the lack of M&A activity that's going on, the uncertainty around value and pricing. And so I think that buyers are definitely digging into the details and are wanting to see that. In the dozens of acquisitions I've been through, I've found that the best processes are actually laid on good preparation and making sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, your data room is really put together. And I think that's where a partner like you all at CrossCountry could really come in. If I'm thinking about going to market and really doing everything I need to do to prepare for diligence and get the buyer's eye, how much time ahead would I need to engage a firm like yours to be in best stead for that acquisition?
Yeah, I think really 12 to 18 months is an ideal timeline to start engaging around a sell-side readiness project. It gives you time to do the right preparation in terms of cleaning up the data, doing the right level of analytics to support kind of key questions that you're expecting from buyers, and have really good answers for when you approach the market on the business trends, the story. And it also gives you time to make adjustments in the business where you're able to make adjustments around expenses, around trends and sales, and really get ahead of the story. And so when you go to market, there's a clean EBITDA for the last, call it 6-12 months, where you can point to and say, this is a true run rate of where the business is going. And you have the clean data set and analytics to support that trend, thus making it less likely a buyer is going to have issues with any of the reported financials you're presenting.
No, that's outstanding. I really appreciate you giving me a preview into how long it takes and the key elements you're looking at. And one of the key things that I like to think about, the value that someone like you brings from the outside, is not only the expertise in the subject matter, but you're doing acquisitions or you're doing acquisition readiness over and over and over again. And so you're bringing expertise that I, as the CFO or CEO, may not have in that situation. But then the other thing is, it's kind of that clean viewpoint where you're on the outside looking in. And I like to say, you can't see outside your own box. And so as you're putting that together, you can help me with that critical lens, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I think where we approach it from is really trying to take that outside in view of, here's where we're seeing other buyers in the market digging in. Here's where you want to make sure you have the right level of granularity, the right level of support as you go to market. And really being the ones who we're putting people in place who've done this over and over again, and provide that really kind of additional arms and legs for the CFO to feel comfortable going through the process, to work closely with third parties and towards a successful execution of a transaction, recognizing there's lots of parties involved, as well as still having to manage the day-to-day of the business. It's important to have the right person sitting next to the CFO, helping to drive that process along, knowing the CFO is the overall owner of this process, but having the right resources involved is super important to the process.
No, absolutely. And as I think, if you think about the acquisition where tens to hundreds of millions of dollars are at risk, this careful preparation that you can help with can add significant value to the overall transaction. So when we think about that and we think about the interplay between the CFO and the PMO, talk to me a little bit about the roles in the acquisition preparation and acquisition process.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is the CFO is really the one who's driving the process and plan. This individual should own the prepping of the financials, the analysis, and really kind of helping to tell the equity story to the investment bank and then to the eventual buyers. And so in terms of prepping for a process, I really think of the CFO as the owner of, call it the roadmap of what needs to be solved and what needs to be addressed over that 12 to 18 month period in advance of a transaction. And they're the ones who are helping to drive the prioritization, as well as being the overall kind of vision of where the function should be and the right support should be for the transaction. So the one piece I will call it is that CFO is also being the one who's managing the day-to-day, really helping in a lot of different areas. So this is where they get really stretched. And so the PMO role is really, as I mentioned, kind of right next to the CFO in terms of being that right-hand person. This individual should be driving the day-to-day execution of that roadmap and deal preparation, including helping to support key analyses, reporting that's required to get ahead of the buyer requests, as well as needs for a data room. It could be helping to prep the gap-based financials or other accounting diligence reports before going to market. And this role is also key. The PMO role is also key for helping to coordinate with all third parties involved. So there's typically a significant number of requests coming in from each third party that gets involved in a transaction, if it's a Q of E provider, if it's an investment bank or other parties. And so this person can help coordinate across all the different parties and help make sure that each party is getting what they need to make sure that the information flow, the overall process flow for the transaction does not slow down. And so it's really coordinating with internal and external parties to make sure that everyone is tracking to where the process needs to be.
No, absolutely. And again, having gone through the process multiple times, it's easy to underestimate the effort of the coordination, the data gathering, and the like. And so having additional resources is huge. So the CFO can really focus on captaining the process or the ship, and not get lost and mired of putting together details and the like. Through the acquisition process, there's really significant stress or importance put on the top two financial roles. What are the risks if you don't have the right folks in the role, and what can you do to mitigate that during the process?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. So I think the people part to a process is the most important part. You have to have the right leaders in the function to be able to drive it. So I think, so the key risks I see are really in a couple of different areas. One is around time spent. So these leaders have a lot that they are managing. So including not just the process, but also large scale projects and initiatives happening at the company. And so if you don't have the right support, there's going to be additional stress put on other initiatives including the sales process, which may cause these projects to push out. So it may take longer than anyone would want for the sales process, or internal initiatives or other large scale projects may be pushed back by not having the right bandwidth to manage and support the different projects. Second piece I'll highlight is really around having a concentrated focus. So having the right number two, if it's controller, FP&A lead, a third-party PMO kind of helping, is super important in terms of just first impressions with the buyers. So the more organized the information is, the more tight the story is for a buyer. That is really critical to first reactions and how an investor will kind of view the business. And so I think having a tight story with someone who's leading that charge and can help bring the information together in an organized way will really impact kind of a buyer's impression and really how they engage with the process. And then the final piece I'll really highlight is just around experience. So if really both parties, in terms of these leaders, have not been through a transaction before, it's going to be more inefficient. It's going to potentially take longer, and it's going to cost more money to get through it, just in terms of just knowing where the gaps are in a transaction, what's going to happen and how to react. It's really hard to learn on the fly. And so I think having at least one person in that seat that's been through it before leading the charge, or an outside party, is very important to make sure that it's an efficient and effective process, recognizing the risks related to it. So I think the biggest piece I will just call out in terms of how do you manage these risks, it's really about making sure you have the right people in the seats to go through it. So it's really understanding the teams you have in place on the internal side, and then making sure, if needed, you have the right support externally to manage the process.
No, people and partners, definitely. And when I think about this, Nick, this conversation today was so timely, given the focus on exits this year. And again, just thinking about the M&A process in general, the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, that preparation is so important, not only in maximizing value, but I think both you and I can agree in our experience of doing deals, in some cases, even getting the deal done and showing that you've got your act together, you're an asset that's top grade and worth pursuing. And so again, can't thank you enough for joining Tailored Talent today to share your insight, and also truly appreciate the partnership between Bespoke Partners and CrossCountry and the value you bring to our companies as they're looking at exits. I hope to have you back again soon.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric.
Have a good one.